Hey guys, welcome to a very exciting video that I'm really thrilled to share with you. This was less of an interview with Herculez Gomez and more of a discussion. Guys, one of the reasons I started this channel was to have these kinds of conversations. We talked about a lot of stuff with Herculez Gomez, particularly concerning the national team, Gregg Berhalter, fan culture, lots of different things. It was very interesting, very insightful. Herculez Gomez agreed with Filippo and I on a lot of things. We also disagreed about some things, and that's great. It's important that we're able to have passionate discussions and even disagree with each other strongly, but still be respectful. And that's one thing I appreciate about Herculez Gomez. He says what he thinks, but he also listens to what you think. And that, for me, is the sign of a strong soccer culture when media and fans are able to interact in this way and share their opinions. And I'm really excited to share this interview with you. Hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the 11 Yanks Show. We have a guest, the returning guest, Herc Gomez, and of course, Filippo Silva. Herc, super psyched to have you on the show. One thing I've always appreciated about you is that you say what you think. And I don't always agree with everything you say, but I love that we have more pundits and media now in American soccer that give their honest opinion. And I think that's what good soccer cultures are made of.
Can I be honest? It's funny. I had this discussion, and I've had it with people high up in the industry. First off, I love what you guys are doing. You're catering to a more sophisticated fan in today's game. And there are different levels of content or consuming content in this soccer pyramid. But I feel like you guys represent me in a way, like you're foot soldiers of the future for this game. So I love that. Keep it going. And I agree. Listen, I don't always agree with certain takes I see or hear, but I respect that people put themselves out there because this is what a proper footballing culture does. They have these discussions and they're healthy. I
agree. Could not agree more. Herc, let's just dive into it. World Cup qualifying. We're talking national team and World Cup qualifying. A lot of us still have PTSD from Cuba. We're going into this last window with some very high.
I don't. We're making it. I don't have any PTSD.
You be quiet. You have the same PTSD.
Okay, actually, Pete knows every day.
You weren't even paying attention in Cuba.
He was like 14 years old when that happened.
No, every day on the phone, Pete knows I'm like complaining to him, saying we're gonna fucking miss it again if it keeps going. Like, sorry for cursing right here. I'm always like complaining, like, no, we're making it. I have like these like lapses of like a teenager, like we're there, we're not, we're there.
Well, the U.S. men's national team, Mexico and Canada better make it because the show is banking on it. My show is banking on it being there in Qatar and showcasing these teams. So they better make it.
Us too. If we don't make it, our shows are probably over.
Yes.
We have 3 games. 2 of them are away. Our current winning percentage away in CONCACAF is 20%. Because I know people like to talk about Berhalter's record. I just think this is the record that really matters right now, going into 2 crucial away games and a home game against an opponent that's really, shown well. What are your thoughts on how we've performed so far? And look a little into the future for me. What's this window going to be like? Hey guys, you need to check out Bounty Sports, which is a totally different way of playing fantasy sports. Instead of picking players like other websites, you pick teams, you compete against other players, and you win cash prizes. Signing up is easy. There's no deposit or credit card needed. And what I like about this is that they've got multiple contests running simultaneously across multiple sports. So the contest I'll be participating in is the Premier Pick'em, $1 entry fee, $36 prize. Here are my picks. I think Southampton beats Norwich. Leeds, I'm going to say loses to Tottenham at home. Crystal Palace ties with Burnley. Brighton ties with Aston Villa. Manchester United beats Watford. I think Brentford loses to Newcastle at home. They're on a whole new streak. Everton loses to Manchester City. They're still struggling. West Ham will beat Wolves. So, guys, if you want to play against me, go use my code 11YANKS. That's 11, no spaces, all caps, YANKS, and get $5 from Bounty Sports for you to use. Come play against me. It's a ton of fun. Don't forget, you can either click the link in the description or use the code 11YANKS when you sign up for Bounty Sports.
So, it's funny because if you guys watch Football Americas, and when there's an upcoming window, right before the window starts, Sebastian Salazar will literally ask me how many points are the U.S. men's national team getting. And I've been pretty spot on in every single window. And he'll be like, oh, come on, they can't only get 7 points this window. That's a sham. Or they can't only get 6 points this window. And he'll get angry at me. in the same way that many of the people who are consuming your videos or consuming the content would get angry. Like, we've got the best generation in the history of U.S. men's national team, and you think they're going to go get a tie in El Salvador? You know, I don't have a problem with the results per se, the points. I have a problem with how you get there. So, for example, I had the first window, which was El Salvador, Canada, and Honduras. I had a 7-point window, or no, is that 5-point window? Is that the first? Was that the first
We
one?
got 5, yeah.
5. I had a 5-point window, and they hit 5 points. I have a problem with how you get there. Like, you can't drop points at home, you know, and then you're forced to win in Honduras in a second half, you know, kind of like renaissance. You can't do it that way. I have a problem with how you get there. I have a problem with the points. I think the points are pretty standard to where I thought the U.S. men's national team would be at this point. I did not have Canada being this good. My issue is how you get there. My issue is, why is it you have to make halftime or second half adjustments to get the team to react? Why is it you're getting it wrong early and often? Why is it we see a different type of team that plays in the United States and a different type of team that plays on the road? Why is there so much rotation? Why isn't there so familiarity in this program? Why did you lose 13 plus months that you could have used building, you know, that familiarity? And now you're trying to move pieces and you're trying to do things, and you can say and tout that over 20 something players have played in each window. I don't want that. I want familiarity. I want guys. I want a set 11. I want to know who's there. Players need this. It's important to them. There needs to be that, you know, getting to know each other and knowing what you're about and what you can do for any team. So those are things that I don't like. And going into this window, plenty of things I do like. Plenty of teams, even from Gregg Berhalter. I've been very critical of Gregg Berhalter, but I will give him his due when he gets things right. This next window is frightening, quite frankly, for any U.S. men's national team fan and anybody, pundits included, that have lived COVID. I remember where I was in ESPN studios and we're watching the game, and then we immediately had to go onto air afterwards. The SPI, the Soccer Power Index, heading into that game gave the U.S. men's national team a 3% chance of not qualifying to the World Cup in Russia. The stars aligned. Mexico couldn't beat Honduras. Costa Rica couldn't beat Panama. Panama had a phantom goal allowed. The U.S. men's national team bottled it versus Trinidad and Tobago, who were playing for nothing. They were playing to ruin your day.
And it was a
yeah, an Omar Gonzalez own goal, a worldly of a goal that Tim Howard could have never gotten to, and they beat you. Okay, it happened. But it's what's happened since. Now, some would argue the best thing that's ever happened in the program of U.S. soccer could have been them missing that World Cup. I would say that's ridiculous. Missing a World Cup is never a good thing. You see, Matt Turner was on the show and he spoke of the 2010 World Cup, my World Cup, which I was a part of, and he spoke of how it inspired him to be a footballer, how he started taking it seriously. How many think about the amount of footballers in one generation that missed out on that moment in 2018 in Russia. Think about that exact moment that could have inspired. Think about Christian Pulisic playing in a World Cup at 18 years old, maybe doing well, what that could have done for him and his confidence going forward. So all these things are a reason why I don't think it's ever a good idea to say it helped. That said, this window is frightening because I see a lot of same similarities that led up to the last game in Kova. A lot of same things. Don't leave it up to chance. Don't leave it up to the last window. Could you imagine losing bad to Mexico, where now emotionally your confidence is shot, heading into Orlando against Panama, who's very Jekyll and Hyde and a very complicated team in a game that you absolutely must win. Like, that's your direct game of making it to the World Cup, and then probably not getting a result and leaving it up to chance in a place where historically you've never won, like Costa Rica. Man, that is just a daunting kind of feeling, like it's all happening again. This is why these missed opportunities in the octagon has been very up and down for a lot of teams, but it's been pretty steady for the U.S. men's national team if you think about it. They've been those top three for a while.
Herc, one thing to add too, Pete. I'm not trying to scare anyone even more, but when Herc talked about Cuba, we did also play Panama and Orlando right before.
You did. And
Yeah.
Christian
In
Pulisic had a
Orlando.
coming out party, and he dropped the goal, and I think they
It was
dropped like
4-0.
4. I was there. I remember that. And it was like, hey, going to the World Cup, book your tickets, and that the arrogance comes out of entitlement. You feeling you have to do something. You feeling you will be there, but these games are won in that on that pitch. They're won on that field. People don't realize 2014, the U.S. men's national team won the cycle. They qualified early against Mexico in Columbus, go on to the group of death, get out of the group of death with Jurgen, John Brooks' goal, Clint Dempsey, Julian Green, and against Belgium. People remember that. What they don't remember is before the Hex, we almost didn't get to the Hex. We were in Antigua and Barbuda, I believe, on
Guatemala.
No. Antigua and Barbuda on a cricket field.
That's right.
In a monsoon, and it was Eddie Johnson, Alan Gordon that came on in the second half late to score 2 goals for us to get to the Hex. We almost didn't make it there. So there are always these things that are difficult, the circumstances, the level of play, the opponent, whatever the case may be. Do not take anything for granted. And that is my biggest fear heading into this window is people see the generation. They see Christian Pulisic, they see Chelsea, they see Champions League, they see Gio Reyna, youngest player in the history of Bundesliga to get to 50 games. They see, Zach Steffen at City, Matt Turner at Arsenal. They think John Brooks isn't even playing. Look at the talent. Look at the Brendan Aronson, just ridiculous game in Champions League. They see this and they get blinded and they don't see what's in front of them, and that scares me.
What do you think is in front of them? Like, what do you think? Is it the youth and inexperience of this team that could hurt them? Do you think it's arrogance? What do you think it is?
I think it's a little bit of everything. I think the inexperience, and we love to talk about the inexperience of this team, but the most inexperienced is probably Gregg Berhalter. Brendan Aronson's playing Champions League. He's inexperienced, but he's playing in the Champions League.
Well, also Canada is inexperienced playing at this level of qualifying, and they crushed it.
Well, yeah, but John Herdman, knows who his team is. They know who they are. They know what they want to play to. I think John Herdman ate Gregg Berhalter's lunch. He's ate Tata's lunch. He's the best coach in CONCACAF right now because of the way he has his team believing, the way he has them playing or punching above their weight class. It's a reality. So these things make me nervous. I don't want to talk about the field. I don't want to talk about the selfies anymore. I don't want to talk about the U.S. men's national team social account. Like, these are distractions. I don't want to talk about sneakers. I want to talk about who this team is. I want to talk about a set 11. I want to talk about a style of play. Why are you so different at home and away? Because that will happen. That will happen. But Mexico, that we've just said is on a decline, has a very good away record with Liga MX players. So why is it you can't put it together? Why is it you can't build a familiarity? Why is it we have more questions than answers going into the last window? These are things that are in front of us that we get blinded by because we see the shininess of European football. We see how nice it is to have players in the Champions League, how nice it is to have players playing in Europa League, how nice it is to have players playing in some of the best teams in the world, best leagues in the world. We get blinded and we don't realize, like, very young team, very naive team, but so is a coach.
Speaking of the coach, do you think Berhalter has these guys playing in a way that best suits their skill set?
That's such a difficult question, Pete, because I don't know what the day-to-day is with these players. I don't know if Giovanni Reyna's telling them, hey, I'd rather play outside than inside. I don't know if Brendan Aronson's asked what he's asked to do from a day-to-day. I don't know if Matt Turner was asked to specifically play one way against Canada and it cost him a goal because he thought he had to play out a certain way. Like, there's so many different factors when it comes to coaching. And I don't presume to be a coach. I would never want to be a coach. I think it's one of the worst jobs in the world. You're always going to be somebody's idiot. And that's just the reality. I was a player and I had a bunch of coaches, probably over 20 of them in my career, and probably 18, 19 of them were idiots to me. That's just the way the player feels. Like, a player does their job, but he's never happy all the time. So it's a difficult task, a difficult job. What I will say is he has a premier select group of players who I don't feel have exploded like they can, who I don't feel he's gotten the most of like he should. We talk about them being naive and inexperienced and having to learn CONCACAF. Same thing with Gregg. I mean, we didn't select a manager who was in the Champions League. We selected a manager who was with the Columbus Crew. We didn't select a coach who was in Major League Soccer winning trophies. We selected a coach who built a brand or a specific style of play. So trying to fit players into a specific brand is very difficult instead of these players have to play this way type deal.
I would also argue that with inexperience, if you look at who have been our strong performers in this World Cup qualifying cycle, it's been Brendan Aronson, Weston McKennie, Tim Weah, Ricardo Pepi, guys who don't really have experience. Yunus Musa, right? But some
Miles
of the guys
Robinson.
who've been here before, right? Christian Pulisic, we can definitely say maybe hasn't had his best qualifying. Even DeAndre Yedlin, John Brooks, certainly the Legets and the Roldans and the Areolas and Zardes of the world who are supposedly here for the experience. I look at them play and I go, I don't see that experience doing anything on the field. And the guys with quote unquote no experience have been our better performers.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because when you think about a team and what it takes to build a team or the atmosphere, like guys like Christian Roldan and Sebastian Lletget haven't played a whole lot, guys like Luca De La Torre did very well against a very depleted Honduran side, like probably the worst Honduran side I've ever seen in my time in CONCACAF, since I started playing. Like it's a reality, a far cry from the.
And sorry to interrupt there, but remember when we also faced Bosnia's Omega team, whatever that was, guys like Roldan couldn't really put a Luca De La Torre performance on a game like that.
Yeah, but that's we're picking and choosing when it works for us there. What I'm trying to get to is like chances are Luca De La Torre isn't going to be an impact player for you if you have a set 11 and probably 3 or 4 coming off the bench. He may not be that guy for you, right? So I don't really have an issue. Do I think Luca De La Torre merits more opportunities? Absolutely, because that's what it is. You perform at a club level, you merit an opportunity. But sometimes as a coach or as a team, there are certain guys that you think provide an element of balance, cover. Where can they play for you? Like Roldan, and I'm nobody to defend anybody, but Roldan in his club plays as a 6, plays as an 8, plays as a winger. He has the ability to score goals. He's played as a striker. His brother has played as a goalkeeper. Like what I'm getting at is he covers a lot of different holes. So now let's say there's 23 guys who could only go to the Qatar World Cup, okay? And I'm thinking to myself, all right, I need guys who won't be a problem. I need guys who are good for the locker room. I need guys who are glue guys. I need guys who can cover multiple positions. I need somebody who's willing to run through a wall for me. Like I can see why all of a sudden there's a Christian Roldan or Sebastian Lletget. I understand the fans, I guess, uproar when it comes to those guys because they think they're getting more time over a guy like Luca De La Torre. Luca De La Torre committed a huge mistake in my eyes. Like he disclosed a private conversation with Gregg Berhalter, right? And then turned it around on Gregg Berhalter publicly. Now, he may be entitled to his opinion, but you can't think like Gregg Berhalter is not going to see that and say, whoa, wait a second, and think like maybe down the road that won't be a problem. Do you see what I'm saying? Like if I'm the coach, forget Gregg Berhalter. If I'm the U.S. Men's national team manager and that happens to me, chances are you're not going to play with me anymore. Whether you're right or wrong, you're probably not going to play with me anymore. So I see certain things with certain players. Now, we're talking about Roldan and Lletget. We're not talking about Christian Pulisic or Timothy Weah. We're not talking about a position like that. We're not talking about Ricardo Pepi. We're going pretty far into the weeds with this, into the forest with this. So I understand the fans' uproar when it comes to things like that because they see the amount of talent, again, that you have in Europe. And I'm not by no means an MLS snob or a Euro snob. I can care less where you play. I think if you're good enough, you're good enough. And there's certain players that I think in Major League Soccer have proven that they can be very good players. Miles Robinson has been one of the key players this World Cup qualifying. Same thing with Walker Zimmerman as of late. So I see that. I see the value to certain players, I just think sometimes we get blinded by certain things. And Luca De La Torre is a very good player. I think he's a very good player. And I love the chip on his shoulder. But he's also made some mistakes along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that we had Luca De La Torre in camp when we were losing 1-0 to Panama, and he never saw the field when that team couldn't put a single shot on target. I don't think anybody thinks De La Torre is a starter for this team. Right. But I think when we need solutions off the bench and Gregg keeps turning to the same guys who aren't performing and haven't performed, and you can say whatever you want about what they are in the locker room, but ultimately, if you can't perform on the field, I'm not sure that you warrant a place in the locker room. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know.
I was just gonna say, didn't we see also comments from Tyler Adams? Was it today or yesterday? He kind of made it believe that Gregg. He mentioned the MLS guys that they know the way Gregg wants to play more specifically, and then Tyler kind of compared how in a club you can kind of get players and build your system on the national team. If you force something, it might not work for the best players that you have. And then
Right.
Tyler kind of pushed back on it, but we kind of got the message from it, right?
Right.
What he wanted.
And that's fair. I would give you the example of Kellen Acosta. Like sometimes it's you not being in a position to show your strengths. Like there was one game again, I believe it was against Northern Ireland in a friendly right before the World Cup, where all these European players, Josh Sargent's there, P. Fox there, Christian Pulisic scored in a penalty kick against Northern Ireland. Like they're doing very well, and the one weak spot on the field was Kellen Acosta, and people were crushing Kellen Acosta, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, dude, why would you as the coach put this player in if you know he's the guy that's been in less rhythm than anybody? He's not in season. He's a Major League Soccer player, not in season. All these European players are in season. There's a clear weakness on the field, and it's Kellen Acosta, not because he's not a good player, not because he's a terrible player, but because he's not fit. He's not in rhythm. And then he gets pulled, and then fans are killing him, and then there's got the MLS stench, around him, and fans hate that, and then they're bombing on him. But if you look at Kellen Acosta, like if Tyler Adams isn't there, who do you think's going to play?
Kellen,
Realistically, it's Kellen's going to be the man, and Kellen's proven that he's a decent enough player to be that man.
The problem is that he's been inconsistent in World Cup qualifying. Like outside of Honduras, where he got a lot of praise.
Think about it, Pete. Where has he been inconsistent? Panama.
Yeah, Panama.
Do you remember that game?
Canada at home. Canada at home.
Do you remember that game?
Yeah.
Who played well?
Nobody.
Yunus Musa was on the field. He didn't play well.
Sure. But Yunus Musa had other strong performances, right?
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. So you give him that game, and then we criticize. And look, and I'm not defending these guys. I'm just saying, like, there's certain things, like sometimes they're not being set up properly. Like Canada, we mentioned Canada at home. Who played well that game? Like John Brooks didn't necessarily play well.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that. But
except for Brooks was never called in again, while Acosta got more chances.
Well, fair, but Brooks was a starter. Okay, so we're arguing the place of the 16th, 17th man on the team to a guy who's third on the call sheet.
But
I drop him from the starting lineup and give somebody else a shot. But to completely push
you're preaching to the choir, Pete. Here, like I think we're on the same wavelength when it comes to John Brooks. But what I'm trying to argue here is, people love to get on these players, and Matt Turner could easily be one of these players that you would get on. He's made his fair share of mistakes as well. But he's played the third most minutes out of any player on the USMNT'S national team this World Cup qualifying cycle. So we pick and choose who's good for us and who's not. And we don't say, like, why aren't they being set up to succeed? Like, to me, this is, and I'm not trying to put it on Berhalter, like keep mounting on the criticism to Berhalter, but these are things that the manager could be better at, helping his players succeed.
I mean, to your point, Kellen Acosta, one of the reasons he's been inconsistent is because he's being played as an attacking midfielder instead of a 6. Like against Canada, him and Leggett were the dual 8s. And that's not really, in my opinion, his best position. But to your earlier point, Herc, I think fans see Josh Sargent, Jordan Pefok, John Brooks, Matthew Hoppe get dropped for poor form.
Right?
Yeah. And you can understand that. Okay, you're not playing well. You're not a part of it. And
but it should be for everybody. It should be that way.
It should be the same for everybody. Okay, if you're not performing, you should be dropped. And it doesn't feel like the same standard.
And that's what I'm saying about Gregg Berhalter doesn't set these guys up to succeed. Like now, because of Gregg Berhalter saying that, there's more pressure on a Christian Roldan. There's more pressure on a Sebastian Leggett. There's more pressure on a Kellen Acosta. When he said that, I was beside myself, because I don't care what you think about one's individual form. It's a lot different trying to compete in the Bundesliga than Major League Soccer. It's a lot different having to read the Gazette, read everything that's going on in your personal life or your contractual state with said club publicly as to being in Major League Soccer. And then, I'll go have a beer on a Wednesday night. It's a lot different atmosphere.
Yeah.
Not just the talent level, but the overall level of you being immersed in the game. So I think that holds more weight to me. So when you say form, it makes people say, wait, what about that guy? Well, what about this guy? Well, how come this only applies to him? And that's a shame,
I
because
have a question, actually,
yeah,
Pete. I have one question. It's a quick one. So, also, it's very hard to define form based on what you just said, too, because what is good form in MLS might be bad form in a Premier League. You're scoring goals in MLS, and it looks okay. You got 10 goals this season. You're doing great. But you put that same guy in the Premier League, and then he gets no goals. Is he in bad form now? He's in the same form,
right.
but it's just the
Form is
level of
relevant,
competition.
right? Like
Yeah.
this discussion when Matt Turner won the goalkeeper of the year. Matt Turner had like 4 shutouts. Andre Blake had like 12 shutout or 13, 12 or 13 shutouts. There were 2 other goalkeepers, Willis and Yarbrough, that had 13 shutouts. And I'm thinking, your best goalkeeper on the best team in the league, record points ever, only got 4 shutouts. When he was with the national team, his backup got 2 shutouts in 5 games. Like, what am I missing here? Like, so form is relative. You can use these different numbers and diagrams, and Gregg's of that cloth. He will break out the PowerPoint and tell you why, he's right. But that's not what the game is about. Sometimes form is like, okay, here's the form I want to see. John Brooks started bad. Can he get himself out? Can he problem solve? Can he build himself back up? Where is he now? Is he one of my veterans? Is he one of my leaders? What can he do for the team? Like, that's the form I'm interested in. Just because you have a bad game or a bad window or a bad moment, it doesn't define you. Like, if the reason John Brooks is not with the national team is because there's a clip, 10-second clip on the net of him giving you the side eye, that's not good enough for me. And I know he's probably in his own mind protecting him, doesn't want to say what's really happening, but all you're doing is opening yourself for criticism and opening others up for criticism. And I do feel a lot of this Roldan, Leggett, Acosta, MLS hate is rooted in what Gregg Berhalter tells the public.
You referenced John Brooks earlier and the environment that he has to be in every day with the bill, coming out. I've been hearing recently a lot of things about how American soccer fans are toxic or how they put too much pressure on this team and we all need to shut up and support the team. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this mentality.
Cool story, right? So we have to treat it and sanitize it, wear white gloves, so it's palatable for you, because that's the way the game is consumed by you, is what they're telling us. But the way the game is consumed by the rest of the world is a different show. Some of it could be not healthy, and I've had this discussion. Bobby Warshaw does a great job in that podcast series with Gregg Berhalter for US Soccer. We had a discussion over WhatsApp, and he was talking to me about our show, and he's like, I struggle. I love with what you guys are doing, but part of me asks if it's like healthy for US soccer. Not that I agree with it or not, but do we want to get to where Brazil is, to where Germany is, to where Mexico is with that type of environment? As if the press has a responsibility for the well-being and nurturing of the talent that they cover or showcase. And I was trying to explain to him, like, listen, man, the way that our company, our sports industry treats other sports is the way that we are trying to treat the U.S. men's national team. We are trying to treat soccer in this country. We're trying to legitimize something that's for the longest time not been legitimate, that has been seen as an afterthought. We're not prying into their personal life like they would in England. Page 6, he was out here with said bird, he drives this car, et cetera, et cetera. He was seen here, et cetera, et cetera. We're trying to do a deep dive into what is going on in the field and why it is happening, the same way that any other show around the world would cover their sport. We are trying to legitimize what is going on. So to those people, I say, get a grip. I say, stop watching football the way, or demanding it is covered the way you think it should be covered, because we are long past that. Today's fan is much more sophisticated. It is growing, and it continues to evolve, and you need to either adapt or die with it.
I agree. And I think it's interesting that what you mentioned, where people say, is it healthy for us to become Brazil or England, as if that's the only other alternative? Like there isn't
Correct.
an Atlantic Ocean between where we are and where I don't think any of us think there should be fan violence or, prying into players' personal lives.
We had this discussion on Football Americas if Christian Pulisic has too much pressure on him. Like, by no means does any footballer in the United States have too much pressure on him. Like, here, there's a select group that will cover what you do. Here, you can go out and have a beer. Here, you can see your family. People can know who your family is, and nothing will come of it. In Mexico, when I was playing in Mexico, if we had a big game, I wouldn't go out the week before, not even for a coffee, not for dinner, not to the grocery store. I would stay in. I wouldn't go out if we lost a game. You just interviewed Jermaine Jones. Jermaine Jones told you, like, we won, we're loved, but if we didn't win, I would hear about it. Toxic, very toxic. I've had a gun sent to me, like a picture of a gun sent to me with my parents' name over social media for missing a penalty kick. I've been discriminated against in a xenophobic way. I've been insulted, harassed. All of this is not acceptable in any culture, but par for the course in a lot of different footballing cultures. We are nowhere near this. All we're doing is demanding more because the bar is higher. This is what essentially I am doing, you are doing, and when I talk about you guys being foot soldiers, I really mean that. There's a saying in the Mexican press, like dejando escuela, like you're leaving a school, right? Or a train of thought, or I should say, like, you guys in a way think very similarly to how I think and how Sebastian Salazar thinks. And we do it in a certain way, and then it trickles down and you do it in a certain way, and you're inspiring different people to keep doing it in a certain way. It's a chain reaction of how this game is now going to be consumed. You're not going to accept that the most talented generation of Champions League players and a Champions League winner should be struggling the way they're struggling. This team should be playing the way they're playing. You're not going to accept that it's okay to just say, hoorah, hoorah, we'll get them next time. That it's okay to, that's the game. It happens. No, there needs to be accountability in everything. And this is what we are doing.
Can I add one thing, Pete, to that too?
Yeah, go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, it's just pretty much the same thing we've been saying here in the channel too. We don't want to be the way Brazil, Argentina, these countries are. I lived in the Brazilian soccer culture. There's wonderful things about it, right? In terms of emotion and what you get, the passion. But there's horrible things that happen there that I never wanted to touch U.S. soccer. I shared a video the other day, right, of a fan hitting the other, people invading a field to destroy the VAR because they didn't agree with the call. That's not what we want. All we want is what you said, accountability for what U.S. soccer should be with the talent we have, and certain things that U.S. Soccer Federation does that's sketchy and we don't agree with.
I don't want U.S. soccer to be like the Brazilian economy, the economy of the future, and it always will be.
Exactly. That's the best way. How did you know that? Wait. How did you know that? That's a joke in Brazil.
Come on, man. I'm worldly. Come on, man.
But I think the point you made about even like don't compare with Europe or South America, just compare with other American sports, right?
Yeah.
Compare with NBA, NFL, NHL, and the way they treat their teams and coaches. If they lose, there's pressure, there's media inquisition.
Pete, that's why it kills me when I have to read ESPN doesn't do this, ESPN doesn't do that. I'm like, you literally have a show catered for CONCACAF, catered for your football, men's and women's, covering this. What you're saying when you say ESPN doesn't do that is these two at ESPN aren't for me. These two, what they do aren't for me. But ESPN is doing that. ESPN gave 2 Latino kids, 2 Mexican Americans, the keys to a Ferrari. Heavily backed us. Production is like unlike the majority of shows you will see, and said, here you go, talk about the sport. And we are doing that. So when I have to read ESPN doesn't do that, I'm thinking to myself, what you're saying is I don't like what these two do, so it's not good enough for me.
Football Americas, guys, check it out. It's honestly, and I'm not just saying this because Herc is on the show. It's one of my favorite shows to watch. That's not, a YouTube.
You better say it.
"Quote unquote" mainstream media show, but I watch it because I like. Again, I don't always agree, but I like the honesty and the authenticity.
It's not
the
Football
dialect.
America. It might be other people in ESPN that people are bothered about.
Yeah, I haven't seen that
not,
many complaints about Football Americas. I'm not going to
well,
lie.
not Football Americas, but I've seen complaints about other people in ESPN.
Well, we try. Whether listen, we don't presume to have all the answers, but just like any other show, what we say is not law, but we're saying it.
Yeah.
And that's what needs to keep on happening. You need to have healthy discussion.
It's discussion. It's exactly that. I'll remember sitting in Italy in a cafe in Milan and with a girl who spoke Italian, and there was these two guys behind me yelling at each other for hours. I swear it was 3 hours. I was like, what are they talking about? I kept hearing two names, Inzaghi and Vieri. And they were arguing for 3 hours over espresso. Who was the better player? And I was like, why can't I go to Starbucks and hear an argument about Gio Reyna versus Christian Pulisic?
Who was the better player, Inzaghi or Vieri?
Inzaghi.
I think Vieri.
I think
Vieri. You guys are on one.
Let's go have espresso and yell at each other. No, but Herc, I know you got to get going here, but I really appreciate your time and your perspective and coming on the show. Guys, I'm going to put the link to Twitter, to your Twitter account in the description, as well as Football Americas on ESPN Plus. You guys know it. Go ahead and give that a watch and a follow. Anything else? Any last words, Herc?
No, I appreciate it, guys. What you guys are doing is God's work. I really appreciate what you guys are doing because it makes my job easier to know like this is getting out there and people are consuming it. And whether you agree with me or not, like I think it creates a healthy discussion. And listen, I love the fact that I go back to the Dejando Escuela. Like what we're doing is inspiring, just like the way footballers inspire the next generation. We're inspiring the next generation of content creators, and people don't realize like a lot of these guys you see on TV were in your exact shoes, so that's pretty cool to see, especially where you guys are now and where you can be.
Thanks, Herc. We're going to let you go. Thanks again, Filippo. Guys, go follow Tactical Manager if you don't already as well. We'll talk to you later, Herc.